This is an opportunity for us to really take a look at all of the activities that are underway under the leadership of the now CEO at Sound Transit, Dow Constantine, who's been an incredible champion and a visionary for how we can ensure that we have reliable, accessible transit that also complements amenities in this region. I want to first thank him for his willingness to be here today and for being willing to share with us a preview of some of the work that is currently underway, because you, West Seattleites, like details. We have been wanting some additional clarity and where possible to be able to have reliable information that allows us to be part of the decision-making process. And when Executive Constantine took over at Sound Transit, he took that directive seriously and has brought on an incredible team to dig deep, to find cost savings, to reduce impact on residents and small businesses while delivering out here to West Seattle. So please, if you will, give it up for Executive CEO of Sound Transit, Dow Constantine.
Can't stop with the executive. Yeah, I was sworn in as executive 16 years ago today, I was just reminded. And I want to thank Executive Braddock for stewarding the county over the course of the last 8 months. Tomorrow, Executive Gurmai Zahalai will be sworn in, and I congratulate him and thank him for stepping up and for his service. Thank you, Councilmember Mosqueda, Councilmember Saka, thank you for organizing tonight. And thanks to Executive Braddock for helping convene this meeting. And I really want to thank the Chamber, the West Seattle Chamber, as well as the Transportation Choices Coalition, the 34th District Democrats, and the Delridge Neighborhoods Development Association. I've been part of every single one of these organizations at some point. It's crazy. I was on the DNDA board when we organized to save this old Cooper School and turn it into a community center. And look at this. Fantastic. Most of all, I want to thank the West Seattle community for all of those things and for continually showing up to these events over the years and showing how much we care about our little peninsula here. My role this evening is to situate the West Seattle Link project and the overall happenings within Sound Transit. And then after some other remarks, we're going to turn it over to some of our Sound Transit staff, Capitol staff, who can tell you about the work that the agency's been doing over the course of the last, 8 months since I've been on board and more. A little over a week ago, the Sound Transit Board held its second retreat of the year to dive into options around making Sound Transit sustainable for the long haul, sustainable for the next generations of passengers and of taxpayers, including long-term finance, capital, and operations. And this work collected together is called the Enterprise Initiative. And it's the first comprehensive reassessment of our operations and maintenance, our capital program, and our financial policies in the history of the agency. Now, a few years ago, Sound Transit was primarily a capital construction firm. We contract out our operations to King County Metro, and when we started out, almost everything we did was about capital. But now, of course, we have built a really substantial transit agency, and so our operations are a bigger and bigger part of the book of business, and we're facing now complex financial realities born in large part of the inflation that we saw during the COVID era. And importantly, we are providing daily transit for as many as 150,000 people a day. And that service to the people of our region is something that they are building their lives around. The Enterprise Initiative work will be completed roughly this time next year through a series of critical decision points for the board over the course of the summer and fall. But this spring, we aim to revise our system plan for the first time since 2015, which includes our capital plans for all of our projects actively being planned, designed, or built. And it also includes our service plans and the operational assumptions for everything we're already operating. Now, we will also be updating our long-range plan. That creates a menu of potential projects for the next leg of the journey toward a truly connected region, and we'll be updating our long-range financial plan to account for all the intersecting realities that have changed since Sound Transit 3 was adopted a decade ago. And working to close what we estimate to be, in year of expenditure terms, a $34 billion gap over 20 years between revenues and expenses. Now, all that sounds daunting, especially for those of us living in areas that have yet to get projects built to our neighborhoods. But I encourage us to take a step back and take comfort and confidence in a history of success. Consider that it was, in fact, 16 years ago that we had no light rail at all. Our region did not have fast, frequent, all-day regional rail service. In less than 2 weeks, on December 6th, we will open our latest extension to Federal Way, another 8 miles, another 3 stations, connecting South King County to the system for the first time and making our flagship one line, the north-south line, the second longest light rail line in the United States at 41 miles. And by the time we welcome countless visitors to our region from around the globe next year for the World Cup, we will have built a system of 63 miles of light rail in less than 17 years. That is a rate of expansion that is unrivaled by any peer in North America, with possible exception of Los Angeles, but that's cheating because they have so many more people. This history of success is something that we should be proud of, but more to the point, it should give us confidence that we do have the grit and the tools to be able to solve today's problems. Now, it is too early to say what the Enterprise Initiative will mean for Sound Transit 3 projects currently in design, including West Seattle and Ballard, Everett, and Tacoma. This is a process that will be led, and ultimately the decisions will be made by our board. As CEO, it is my job to harness the talent in this agency to support the board with the information and knowledge needed to make and empower decision-making. Now, the information our staff will share today, and I will tell you it's exciting, on the West Seattle Link Extension Cost Savings Work Plan is an important piece of solving this puzzle. Brad, I turned to you months ago and I said, go to the drawing board and figure out how to reduce the costs to build the West Seattle Link. And you and your team and our consultants and our partners have been busy doing just that. And I think that you're going to see that this has been some pretty remarkable work over the course of several months. The good work that's happening on the West Seattle project is just an example, though. We're doing that same work on Tacoma, and we're doing that same work on Ballard, and we're doing that same work on Everett and on the maintenance bases, and we'll be continuing to hone the skill of this agency in delivering the capital projects, driving down costs, increasing speed, increasing efficiency. I'm confident in the end that we will succeed in setting Sound Transit on a new and sustainable trajectory, one that allows for the continued growth and operation of the world-class transit system that we have always needed. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to again thank our hosts for organizing this forum tonight, and I'm so looking forward to you getting to learn what I have learned from the folks who have been diligently working away to create cost savings on West Seattle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, CEO Constantine, and this is exactly what tonight is all about. Somebody asked me earlier, why are we having this forum? And the reason that we're having this forum is because we have been able to get bits and pieces from executive Constantine. Okay. 16 years, from CEO Constantine's team, that they're putting together some pieces, and this tonight is an opportunity for West Seattle residents to hear more of the initial thinking, the deliberative process, and to have actual details to complement some of the rumors and stories that we've all been reading. So if we can, please thank again CEO Constantine for being willing to host this tonight with us. I want to thank as well, and as CEO Constantine noted, I want to thank as well, if you could stand, our Seattle City Councilmember Saka here from District 1, who is a co-sponsor here with us. And when we met recently, this was one of the very topics that we talked about. So a lot of shared interest here tonight. Just a few logistics. I see the clipboard being passed around. Thank you so much. We started here on the first row, so it has already made it back up, and we're going to circle back around to folks in the front who might not have yet had a chance to sign in. We're looking for your email here, because what we'd like to do is to be able to ask Sound Transit and my office as well to be able to stay in touch with you so that we can continue to inform folks about any information that's late breaking, but really importantly, to be able to answer your questions. If you have not received a question card, please raise your hand and our team will try to make sure to get one to you. Aaron, if our team could maybe pass out some question cards for folks. When you see folks coming up and down the aisle, just hold your hand up. We will make sure that you get some question cards in your hand and that you have a pen to write your questions down. As you see, we have a packed agenda. I know we're not going to be able to get to every question, but I have committed that we will be able to have at least 4 to 5 people ask their questions into the microphone if they can keep it real succinct. That's not going to be sufficient for everyone here because you all have questions, I'm sure. I'm hoping that a lot of your questions get answered by the presentation tonight. So please write down your question, we will keep it, and we will do our due diligence to get you the answers you are seeking here tonight. One more thing about logistics. If you've parked in a residential parking spot, there are artists who live here on the 2nd and 3rd floor. That's the incredible part about DNDA. They not only create creative spaces, but they're creating housing for artists and the creative industry to be able to have an affordable house. So if you know that you've parked in a resident spot, if you can move your car, that would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, I was making the noise like, hey, the music's still playing. I forgot, Jazzercise is happening next door. So if you're looking for something to do on a Wednesday night, was it Wednesday? Today's Monday night. If you're looking for something to do on a Monday night, Jazzercise is the place to go here. I said Wednesday because I come every Wednesday here with our family. We come and do watercoloring. Free community classes is what DND is all about, so think about them as you think about how to invest in our local community again. So if you hear the Jazzercise music, it's just to pump us up for this conversation. So again, getting into the meat of this, we want to provide details and we are looking forward to learning with you. A lot of the information that you see on the placards up here and that you will see in the PowerPoint presentation is really late breaking, hot off the press analysis, initial concepts that we are lucky to be able to see in real time. And the importance of that as a public official and public agencies is that then you get to also be able to inform the process as it evolves. Tonight's really an opportunity for us to be able to hear how this concept that CEO Constantine mentioned, cutting down costs, cutting down time, continuing to deliver to West Seattle and Ballard projects are coming together. We are going to be able to hear from them some of their thinking about how this new vision aligns not only with delivering transit that's reliable, but how it can complement existing assets. I'm talking about assets like Mode, where my kiddo goes to learn piano lessons now. I'm talking about places like the West Seattle Health Club, where my kiddo is learning to swim. I'm talking about places like child care centers, like ABA, where it's the largest child care facility on the West Seattle Peninsula, right? And I'm talking about small businesses like the ones that Rachel represents through the West Seattle through the West Seattle Chamber. We know that it is critical for residents and businesses to be able to have reliable transit and for us to be able to see how sound transit factors into that. Of course, there will be things that change. Change is really hard, but one of the things that I continue to hear from residents here is how that change can be adapted and complement existing resources, especially as we're looking for ways to mitigate costs. Cost overrides are not unique to Sound Transit. If anybody here works in construction, if anybody here works in a small business, we all know that the costs are increasing dramatically for labor, for materials, and especially for infrastructure. So while increased costs are not unique to Sound Transit, there is absolutely a microscope on these projects and folks asking, how are we planning to reduce costs while still delivering services? That's the exciting part about having CEO Constantine in this role, about having Executive Braddock sitting on the Sound Transit Board, and some of our friends and colleagues who are sitting there as well. We want delivery to West Seattle and Ballard to be as reliable as service to Everett and Tacoma, while complementing existing community assets and recognizing the residential needs of the area. I'm so thankful that on behalf of Executive Braddock here tonight, we have Carrie Moody, excuse me, Carrie, let me get your exact name right. Carrie Aliva Mooney, who's here to speak on behalf of Executive Braddock, who again, as her last day as executive tomorrow. If you could please join me in thanking the executive's office for being here, and thank you, Carrie.
Hi, West Seattle. I'm Carrie Avian-Mooney, and I work for King County Executive Shannon Braddock. She was supposed to be here tonight, but this is her last evening as county exec, and as earlier today we celebrated that she accomplished every single item on her 200-day plan, and she just had a few more things to finish up tonight, so I am here for her. I am happy to be here. This isn't the first time I've spoken here with jazzercise going on. I've been working on the Sound Transit project, the West Seattle project, since its inception when it kicked off 8 years ago. So it's a project that is near and dear to my heart. And also, no surprise, this is a huge, Shannon Braddock is a huge fan of building West Seattle Link here to West Seattle. And she wanted me to remind you all that Sound Transit has a record of decision for the West Seattle project. It's the only project we have a record of decision on, and it was a huge feat to get this record of decision given the changes in the Secretary of Transportation and the department. So we have momentum with this project. What we should be doing right now and what the executive encourages us to do, she's been encouraging the Sound Transit Board colleagues, is encouraging future colleagues and electeds and leaders, is to go forward with design of this project. At this time in the project, we should be determining ways to save money, to shorten schedules, to advance the project design, and start to prepare for construction while we continue to figure out how the full funding will be realized. She is passionate about this project and wants us to move forward. Why? Because it is going to cut travel time from downtown, from West Seattle to downtown. It also will build a much needed reliability measure as it will in the future go down to SeaTac Airport and South King and go through West Seattle to downtown. It will provide a backup for the West Seattle Bridge, and everyone that lives here knows how important that is. And it's also going to support equitable growth in all around West Seattle, and especially along Delridge, where thousands of units are in planning and planned because of the mobility that our station will bring to West Seattle. So I'll cut it short because the good stuff is next when you all get to see how design's progressing and some good ideas to bring down costs and get this built as soon as possible. We know that 80% of West Seattleites have supported this project time and time again over years, and we know that the support is still strong, and it's now time for Sound Transit to deliver and thank you all for all your support that you've given the project. So let's quickly move together and build West Seattle to connect for the future. Thank you very much.
And if anybody wants to tune in for a farewell to Executive Braddock, tomorrow at 1:30 in Chambers, we'll be giving her final farewell. So colleagues, again, without further ado, we are here as your neighbors. Councilmember Saka and myself, we live in this neighborhood. Literally, my neighbors are here. And it's really great to see so many of you that we've seen in community over the last decade or so, who've been interested in the details as we've worked since 2016 on this concept. As I mentioned, a lot of the details are sort of still being discussed, whether it's in a headline in the newspaper or something that your neighbor heard. Tonight is really an opportunity for us to cut through that noise and hear the latest thinking directly from Sound Transit. We are so thankful for the opportunity to have folks like Brad Owen and Jason Humpton who are here to give us an overview of what Sound Transit is currently thinking. And I will tell you, as a resident of West Seattle, along with all of you and our neighbors, we need these type of details to be informed for conversations that we have with our neighbors, that we have with small businesses, so that we can better understand where we're at in the process, what the cost potentially could be, and ways that we can engage in the future. That's what tonight's about. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad, who's going to give us a chance to hear a little bit more with details on the slides and materials that you can then be able to access later. Again, if you have a question, there are folks walking through the hallways here, the aisles here with papers, so you can write those down, and we're going to do our best to get your questions answered in writing after this, and we'll have a chance to hear from a few folks tonight as well. Please help me welcome to the stage West Seattle design and cost-saving presenter Brad Owen and Jason Hampton.
The mic, I'm going to check. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Let's see if the mic comes off so that I can look around. My name is Brad Owen. Can you see if you can figure out how to make that go forward and backward one time? Point it up that way. My name is Brad Owen. I'm an executive director at Sound Transit in the Capital Delivery Department. Specifically, my job is to design and build the trains that you see. I joined Sound Transit about a year ago. I live in West Seattle. I moved here about a year and 3 months ago. Learning to love this really cool community that I moved into. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you a little bit of a just update on what we've been doing, why we've been doing it, why you see some things different tonight, and then hopefully have a chance to answer some of your questions. There's a lot of information in here. Jason and I are going to tag team this a little bit as we go forward. But what I wanted to do was remind everyone of the project. West Seattle, it adds about 4.1 miles of light rail from the West Seattle, from the junction, the Alaska Junction, up into SoDo, intending to reduce travel times, as has been mentioned, and provide other transportation options to the community here. Focusing on redevelopment near the stations, affordable housing, all of the things that Sound Transit is known for, that we are planning for the benefits that this brings, all the travel alternative to the West Seattle Bridge. And then finally, as has been mentioned, this does facilitate future expansion down to the south, the SeaTac to Burien. Nothing that we are planning or going to show you today precludes that future expansion. So that is very important to us to keep that on our minds. So next slide says why we're here today. Maybe. There we go. So what we're going to do here today is we're going to give you a little bit of project background, remind you of some of the things that you may have seen during the environmental process that we now have behind us. We're going to talk about the cost savings work plan, give you some of the things that we have been looking at and some of the nomenclature that we've been using so that you know what we're talking about when we say this in the boardroom or at other community meetings as well. And then we're going to talk about the next steps and what this really means as we go through the process. So, Jason.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having us here. Again, Jason Hampton. I'm the commercial director for the West Seattle Link Extension. Got the thumbs up from Deb that the volume's working good, thank you. I just want to point out a couple of operating plans here. On the left here, we have the operating plan when the West Seattle Link Extension opens. As you're all aware, the West Seattle Link Extension is a connection from Alaska Junction to Soto. And until the Ballard Link Extension comes online and is connected to the system, passengers traveling from West Seattle to downtown would transfer at the Soto station. The existing bus routes, the rapid ride routes that currently serve West Seattle and into downtown, would continue to run during that period before Ballard opens. And what happens in 2042 when Ballard opens is the West Seattle Link really connects to that regional system. So from West Seattle, a 1C trip could take you all the way up to Linwood and beyond. And at that time, the Ballard extension would connect to the one line through a new downtown tunnel and south into Federal Way, which is opening very soon. I know there's people here that work on that project as well. And connect to a real regional light rail system with easy transfers to the 2 line in the east side as well. So these slides here, I have 2 of them. I really like these because they really visualize how the regional system will work when it's all built out. I have some boards over here as well, so if you want to take a look afterward, they're up here as well. So here on the left, we show how far a passenger can travel on the existing transit network, including Link Light Rail and other metro services, connecting in 15, 30, 45, and 60-minute intervals with the different gradations and colors there. You can see it's a pretty good transit system, as Dow talked about. We're going to have 41 miles very soon. You can travel in 30 to 45 minutes as far as Mercer Island, as far north as Linwood. But in 2042, when West Seattle is connected to the regional system, you're going to see much better connectivity to the regional system. So, as Brad described it as being 4 miles and 4 stations and 4.1 miles, it's really building a regional system, not just an extension here. You can see an hour can get folks to the east side, out to Redmond, up to Everett, and further south down to Des Moines. The next slide, please. So this is very similar, so I'm going to be pretty quick on this, but I just want to point out that this isn't just building a system to connect people from trains to the regional system, but it's a really important connection for the buses, people living further south in the peninsula, to connect into either Alaska Junction Station or the stations at Avalon and Delridge, and then connect them to the system. So this shows a trip today from Westwood Village and how far you can travel in those same increments of time. And then when connecting through a rapid ride into a station or another bus service into a station with the complete build out, it really connects the bus riders to the regional system as well. So it's a really important service to do that. Back to Brad.
All right, thanks, Jason. So what we're going to do now is talk about the affordability problem, or the affordability challenge, the affordability opportunity, however you want to frame it. And how we got here and what what are we trying to solve for? So as every transit agency across the nation, across the world, when we first start planning these projects, they're very simple. They're lines on a map. They're part of an overall system plan. We use very simplistic estimating methodology to come up with those costs. And as you move the design forward for a project, or as you gain more information about what you have to do, the type of construction you have to use, the soil conditions, you just start moving through the process. You gain more understanding and knowledge of the project, which allows you to dial your cost in a little bit better. That cost, in this case, has gone up. But in the cost going up, it has given us a better understanding and we believe more clarity about the actual cost of the project so that we can plan and finance for that piece of the project. You can see West Seattle here is at roughly 30% design. We're getting into some very clear cost clarity where we believe we can start really start affecting this through some design process. Next slide. So, the finance plan for West Seattle was $4.2 billion. That was in the original, the rebase line, I think in 2021. That was the original plan. As we've done more estimating for this project, you can now see that the current cost estimate is in the 7 to 7.9 range. That is reflective of, as was mentioned before, there's a lot of cost inflation on I mean, you see it when we all see it. When we go to the grocery store, things cost more. This is no different for construction. Costs have escalated significantly since COVID. Supply chain issues, tariff issues have really driven construction costs across the board up, not just for transit, but for everything. And so what we're trying to do here is bring this number on the right down. How do we bring that number down to a more realistic number for us to finance towards? What you see here is how the cost is broken down. So one of the things that we do is, the region, every transit agency typically gets a funding partner. A lot of times that's the state, a lot of times it's the federal government. For this case, for West Seattle, we want to enter into an FFGA with the federal government, a full funding grant agreement. And so that's important as I start explaining some of these here. So the current cost estimate for construction, 3 to 3.5, that's the cost of concrete, cost of steel, cost of people with hammers. That's the actual physical construction cost that it takes to build these projects. The contingency that you see there is a part of our ongoing work and working towards an agreement with the federal government for a full funding grant agreement. As a part of them giving us a grant for this project, they expect some certainty of their return for money. Consider it like collateral, right? But we don't have physical assets, we don't have things that they can take from us. So the way that the federal government aligns their collateral for us to make sure we give them what they expect is through a contingency. And that's what you see there. And we work through with the FTA on that contingency number. As we dial the scope in and get more certainty, that contingency can come down. But right now, that's what we're carrying in the project. You will see this across all of Sound Transit's link extension projects right now with the contingency. The indirects there you see 0.9 to 1.1, that's the cost of doing business. That's the people like me and people like Jason that manage the construction, manage the FFGA process, manage the ongoing coordination with all of the different pieces. And then the right-of-way at the very top, the right-of-way piece is the cost of property. So that's temporary construction easements, permanent easements, purchasing property to build these projects. That's all linked in there. That is including not only just the cost of the project, but the cost of administration and purchasing all of that. So we want to bring those costs down across the board for every project. As CEO Constantine mentioned, we're going through this on all the projects you see on the right-hand side of the screen here. As a note, this was a board-directed action to Sound Transit staff to develop programmatic and project-specific opportunities that improve the agency's financial position. And so we've divided this into, and I'm going to get into how we've broken this up here in a moment, but we've divided it into specific opportunities that we believe apply across the program, so programmatic opportunities. These are things that we can do as a transit agency to be more efficient. Efficiency in our process, efficiency in our hiring. As an example, there will be at least 50,000 submittals come from contractors and engineers into Sound Transit. And so if we take 20 days to review 50,000 submittals versus 30 days, you can understand how that would be much more efficient over a 10-year project. So that's an example of a programmatic opportunity. Project specific are things that we're going to show you in a moment on this project. They're things that are unique to your project that we believe we can move the needle on. And so we've identified programmatic and project specific across the board for all of these. I want to mention one of the things that we're keeping paramount here is the passenger experience and what we are actually trying to do. We're trying to move people. We're trying to give you better transit opportunities, better transit options. And so the passenger experience, the reliability, and the ridership are things that we're holding paramount, and we are not degrading those values as we move through this process. So what we've done is we've broken it up into levers, like how do we manage all this? Lever one, and for those of you that watch our board meetings, I have actually presented on this before. Lever one are things that we believe we can affect on the project. These are project-specific, design things, making foundations a little smaller, getting better at their construction methods, contracting, packaging. It's all very project-level specific stuff that we believe we can do internally. There's internal to capital delivery, like the construction arm of Sound Transit. Interdepartmental collaboration, these are things that potentially have an impact on passenger experience or the ridership or our headways. These are things like technical things like crossovers, tail tracks. There's an example of tail tracks you'll see. That would be a lever 2 thing where we need to actually talk with other people to make sure we are keeping those values of passenger experience, ridership, all that paramount. External coordination are things, and there's an example in here. I'm just going to not bury the lead. No Avalon, that's one of the things we're going to talk about here. That is a lever 3 external coordination requirement. We have to communicate to the residents and the people that make these decisions for us, along with our board. And so these are things that we're going to socialize and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to talk about these and provide input back to us. And then phasing. This is something, there's a slide later on about phasing that I'll get into. Phasing is a very typical process for these mega projects, for these large programs. The one line U-Link, all of these were built in phases. If you go to other cities like LA and New York, they build their projects in phases as well. The long-range plan for these projects is, there's a lot in there. And so often it is very difficult to piece all of that together in one project or with one funding package. So it is very common to phase them. You'll hear minimum operable segment, you'll hear initial operating segment, you'll hear phase 1. Those roughly all mean the same thing for these projects. Next slide. So we're going to just dive straight into some examples. Hopefully this will jog some questions that you have. We're happy to answer those, as many as we can afterwards, and then we will continue to take questions and respond to them even after this. What do we mean when we say cost savings, work plan, opportunities, all that? Here's an example. When you look at SODO, the SODO station, in the DEIS, FEIS, and ROD, the SODO station was quite large. It was a very large transfer station. So we took a look at it and we said, all right, how do we maximize or optimize this station? The most important thing is to get trains in and out of the station and get people on and off of those trains. So holding those two things paramount, how do we maximize this station? And so what you see is you see a smaller station, you see an optimized passenger flow for the station. These are things that we're able to do once we got more design, technical expertise on board, passenger flow models and that sort of thing that we typically, or that we did not do during the environmental process. But it's resulted in optimization of vertical transportation. Those cost a lot to operate and maintain as well as put in. We've also been able to minimize the foundation sizes. When you have a smaller, lighter station, you can have smaller, lighter foundations. Bigger, heavy stations, bigger, heavy foundations. And then platform loading, canopy structures, all of that, we've been able to optimize all of those for the SODO station. Anything I missed on this one you want to talk about? All right. Let's move to the next one. So the next one's kind of interesting. It's called a shoe fly. A shoe fly is railroad terms for a detour. It's just to get trains around the place where you're supposed to be. And so if you look at the left was the initial shoe fly design that you may have seen in the environmental documents in the ROD. The shoe fly was going around the SODO station on temporary tracks. And you'll see the call outs there. The hashed line right there between 6th Avenue and the railroad tracks, that was all property that we were going to have to acquire to accommodate these temporary tracks. It makes sense that if you're going to build something and rip it out, maybe we should just find a way to not build it and be a little bit more efficient, right? So if you look on the right, what we've tried to do is start optimizing that shoe fly. Are there ways we can stay on the tracks that we already have and work around the construction and keep the trains moving through? And so we've done quite a bit of work there, more efficient shoe fly tracks constructed within the E3 busway. You can see there eliminating about a third of a mile of temporary tracks. I will note, this is roughly where the Ballard line ties in. And so while these property acquisitions are not needed for West Seattle, we're still looking at how they work with the Ballard project and how we can continue moving some of the good ideas and optimizations we have for Ballard. So I just wanted to put that caveat there. But this is an example of the ongoing work that we're trying to do to minimize both the impact to the property owners, the impacts to the people that are using this, the construction durations get shorter, the cost goes down, and it's just, you know, moving the project in the right direction. Did I miss anything? I'm gonna ask you every time.
I think a really important thing to point out here is that when we build that new station directly to the west of the existing SODO station, we need to do it while we're keeping that one line in service. The 41-mile connection between Federal Way and Linwood, it's critical for the regional transportation network, and we can't just shut it down for 6 weeks or 8 weeks because it's easy to build. And so that's part of the reason we need this shoe fly, or we could potentially build a different type of shoe fly to accomplish that. So this would keep that line running.
All right, so I'm going to move on now to the aerial guideway. In engineering and construction terms, what we're doing is we're trying to get a more efficient delivery method for the concrete. Instead of cast in place, we have a precast. There's a lot of opportunities related to doing a precast bridge. The other thing that and that's what we mean by modular construction, precast. And that means you build it somewhere else, you build all these segments and sections of the bridge somewhere else, you truck them or ship them in, you erect them with a crane and screw them all together for lack of a better way. You get better quality, better safety, we have less touch points on the ground, reduces the impact to the community, reduces the amount of road closures potentially that we have to do, so this is all a very good thing. I would say we're also looking at foundation optimization, so everywhere we put a column, this is a elevated guideway. Everything you see from roughly Delridge to Soto, that is an elevated guideway. Every time we put a column in the ground, they're massive. Some of these columns are 30 by 30, 30 feet by 30 feet, 20 feet deep. Some of them are bigger than that. So these are huge, massive foundations. So what we're trying to do is optimize the spacing of this as we move forward so that these foundations, we can make some of them smaller in very tight areas where we potentially have to have a temporary construction easement or impact property, close a road. Maybe we can change the alignment or the length of some of these spans so that we can shrink that down and minimize the impacts to the community. And then we have a simplified bridge design. I'm not going to get into it, but you get the roughly the same aesthetic that we were going for, a really iconic bridge crossing over West Seattle for a better price. Just a little bit of engineering magic, and we're able to clean up the bridge and make it a little bit more efficient and less costly. Did I miss anything on this? I think we're going to move in. You're going to take the next one. So I'm going to hand it off to Jason for the fun stuff, Avalon Station.
Okay, that's it. So there's a few things going on this slide, and I'll just kind of orient folks. So the black line there, where it connects to the line with the X's, is very similar to the alignment that was in the ROD. So it was the final EIS preferred alternative. That included 3 stations in West Seattle, Delridge, Avalon, where that bottom pink diamond is, and then at Alaska Junction. So with some of the, as you all know, we had a no Avalon station in the final EIS as well. And now that we're looking at opportunities to reduce costs, this is a really good opportunity to have direct cost reduction from not having to do the construction along that line where the X's are. So it doesn't only save in the acquisition of properties and the relocation, it also saves in construction costs. And then what we have shown here is a portal location that's very close to, it's east of Avalon Way. So if you remember in the final EIS, we had a tunnel portal for the No Avalon that was just to the east of the West Seattle Bridge connection of Fauntleroy Way. So by eliminating Avalon and looking at this with our design team, we were able to find a little bit more optimized tunnel portal location. This is just to the east of Avalon Way, and you'll remember one of the...
Avalon at where?
It's at the storage site,
Yeah.
the portal. Yeah, you can see. Yeah. So as we no longer have the constraint with the Avalon station, we're able to look at optimizing that alignment further. You know, Brad talked about the current design, the design that was our preferred alternative. We were closer to 30%. All of the EIS alternatives were closer to 10%. So now we're really able to literally dig into the ground, do some geotechnical work, understand the conditions, and then look at the optimized geometry. And it seems like a silly thing, but when you change the tunnel geometry just a little bit in one spot, it changes your opportunities further to the south. So while this is a big cost-saving opportunity, it's really something that opens the door to a lot of other cost-saving opportunities that we're continuing to look through, and we will be in the early part of next year. It still provides great opportunity to serve the Delbridge and Alaska Junction communities, and we would look to partner with our partners at King County Metro to ensure that the stations and the riders that would have been connecting at Avalon have good access to the other stations. Okay, go to the next slide. Oh, yeah, one more, yeah. So, can we go back? Sorry, I lied. Okay, I shouldn't say that as a public official saying I lied. Don't put that on TV. Okay, so one of the other things, if you all remember, and I know Deb was very involved in this, one of the challenges with the draft EIS alignment that traveled along Andover, so from the Delbridge station, we had an alignment that traveled along the north side of Andover, and then before it curved to the south toward Avalon, it impacted a really important social service provider, Transitional Resources. So with the elevated guideway, or with the connection of the No Avalon, that was something we were really trying to avoid, and by doing that, we pushed the alignment further south. And so one of the things we're going to look at now that the portal is on the east side of Avalon Way, and no longer having an elevated guideway that would impact transitional resources, is whether we can find a more optimized alignment through that neighborhood to further reduce impacts. There's no promises. It's a really hard thing to solve, but it's something that we're committed to working with the design team to try to achieve moving forward. Okay, next slide now.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Oh, sorry, we're not gonna do questions yet. We're not gonna do questions yet.
Okay.
And again, if you haven't written it down, please write it down, and I'm gonna come back around and do questions, okay?
So before I get to this, so one of the tunnel optimization alignments that we're looking at is really aimed at reducing the impact on some of the key things like Longfellow Creek and the West Hill Health Club. And so there's some really good opportunities that have been unlocked by not having an Avalon station. So it's work that we're going to continue to do. At Alaska Junction, so in the current plan, we have station, we call them head houses, station entrances on the north side and the south side of Alaska. The tunnel is under 41st Avenue Southwest, and because of the curve of the tunnel, we had to move our special track work, we call it, so a crossover to allow a train to go from one side of the track to the other side, so when it turns around, it's serving the passengers again. We had to put all of that south of the station. But now that we're able to look at a little bit different geometry, we're able to move the crossover, which allows the trains to go from one side or the other to the front. So in Linwood, for example, we have the crossover on the back side. It actually doesn't work well, but you do it in cases where you just physically can't do it. And so we're able to achieve that. And one of the key benefits here of achieving that is this pink box here. That's where some of that track work would have been. That's between Edmonds and Hudson. It would have been a deep open cut construction under 41st Avenue Southwest. It would have required acquisition of properties along the entire one side of one of those streets. So that, living in that neighborhood with the construction impacts would have been a challenge, and certainly having to leave would have been a challenge as well. So this is one more area that we're seeing ability to not only reduce costs, but really reduce community impacts.
Jason, can you point out Alaska, please?
This is Alaska here, so that's east to west. This is 41st north to south. This is Edmonds, and then Hudson, which is, there's that staircase for people traveling east to west, they can walk on that. So we would not need this construction. It still facilitates future expansion to the south. So in the future, when we want to get these trains down to Burien and to connect to the system, we can still do so. It also opens up the opportunity for additional station optimization. So now that we've looked at this, we have some other ideas that we're looking at. And if we don't need these tail tracks to the south, we can explore those opportunities. And I'm excited to do so, but we're not ready to say that those will work yet. And then, anything I missed?
It's very common for some transit.
Let's
not
keep
have words
going.
at the top of the page.
We're gonna keep going. The nice part about these maps is they have names of streets, which I know we were asking for last time, so let's keep going, guys.
I think that was it for the opportunities. And as Jason said, we're working very hard to minimize the impacts to the community while also reducing the cost and schedule of these projects. There's a lot of work ongoing. We're showing you some of the work we're doing. A lot of it is in process and progress. As you dive into this, it's very complex. We find things that we missed. We find things that we weren't aware of, such as soil conditions and things of that nature. But we keep working through it. We appreciate everyone working through it with us. I did mention I was going to talk about the phasing. So you'll hear this. There's an MOS opportunity, a minimum operable segment or initial operable segment. This is what it is here. This would be the Soto to Delridge construction. Continues to facilitate connection. Nothing we would do here would preclude us from continuing on to Alaska Junction. We would obviously be able to do that. We would have to go into Delridge and work on the bus layovers and how we planned all that. But it is an option. Every link extension project has this in their document, in their environmental document. Every train system built in the U.S. has one of these minimum operable segments, and this is ours. Next slide talks about the cost. So we talked about what the problem we're trying to solve here. You can see that the finance plan there is shown as the marker, the 4.2. You can see the total project cost at the very top. So you can see as we start implementing these levers, we start driving the cost in the right direction to the right. You can see the very last thing I talked about, the phasing of the project. That obviously, when you don't build half the project, it's obviously much cheaper. So you can see that pictured here. But what I would say is these right here, we believe are conservative estimates for what we're trying to do. We believe that there's more work and we can continue moving the cost in the right direction. And some of the work that we're doing, we just showed you. So we're going to continue to push it that way. But you can see here, lever 3, when we talk about a no Avalon and some of the tunnel alignment that we're able to change, reducing a lot of those community impacts in that area, you're able to start, chopping off 20% of the cost of the project, the overall cost. So good news. I think that's good news. We're moving in the right direction. The next steps on the next slide talk about what we're going to do next and what you can expect from us. We're going to keep doing this work. If you tune into the board meetings, if you tune into the construction committee meetings, you will see us presenting on some of this stuff as a part of West Seattle and the Enterprise Initiative. We are going to continue engaging with the community and providing feedback to you so that you can provide feedback to us. And then, obviously, we're going to hear from Kirk in a moment. Staying on schedule with these drives the cost of these projects in the right direction. Some of the numbers that you see on delays for these projects are in the tens of millions of dollars of escalation costs that we experience on a month. So, if you delay a month, add tens of millions of dollars to the back end of that project on the cost. So, with that, I know we have, I'll turn it back over to you, Councilmember Mosqueda. Thank you very much.
All right. So thank you so much. Can we give them a quick round of applause? And we'll have a second for questions here in just a second. Folks, this is literally the most detail I've seen for this area, and I think because of that funnel slide, you can see why, but it's really helpful for us to have real-time information. I'm going to grab another microphone and I'm going to have a chance to read some of the questions that we've received, and then I think pending time, and it sounds like we'll have a little bit of time, we'll have a chance for a few folks to be able to ask some questions. So Kurt, I'd love to introduce you. Please come on up here. Thank you for being here as a community partner from Transportation Choices Coalition, Kirk Hovenkacher. Can you give us some of your thoughts about some of the information we've seen from today?
Thank you, Councilmember Mosqueda, and thank you all for coming out and packing this house on a Monday night on the week of Thanksgiving. I think it just shows the excitement and interest that there is in this project, and especially West Seattle Link. I want to thank Councilmember Mosqueda for bringing us all together today and giving us this opportunity to dive into this project. I'm Kirk Hovenkacher. I'm the Executive Director of Transportation Choices Coalition. If you don't know who we are Washington State's nonprofit advocate for safe, sustainable, and equitable transportation. For 32 years, we've been a coalition of business, labor, transit agencies, transit riders, and elected leaders, all beating the drum for investment in transit and safe walks to transit. And we have done a ton of work in the legislature fighting for more funding for transit. We have done organizing riders across the state, but we're most known for our work leading ballot measure campaigns. We led the successful campaigns in 1996, 2008, and 2016 to expand light rail across this region. And we have stewarded that vision to make sure that Sound Transit delivers on that promise ever since. And I think if anyone has been to some of the light rail openings that we've seen this year in downtown Redmond, we've seen the excitement that there is for light rail and light rail expansion in this region. We know that when a poll was done that asked people in this region what's the most popular, or what's more popular in this region. And expanding light rail polled higher than the Seattle Kraken or the return of the Seattle Supersonics. People want this benefit. And I think if you saw Brad's slide, you saw that one with all the blobs. And what that really means is when this vision is completed, it's going to bring people closer to more friends, more job opportunities, more connections with family. It just gives them more life to live. But when we, hold on one second. So when we, so earlier this August, when we heard the cost increases that Sound Transit shared, I was frustrated. And we know that riders were frustrated across the region. And we wanted to channel that feeling and that energy and that support for this. And we know that riders, voters, and taxpayers are all trying to deliver the same message to the Sound Transit Board, to build the damn trains and get this project done. But we know that in 2008 and 2003, that the Sound Transit Board took the approach of cutting projects back, of deciding to trim them down, rather than looking at other creative financial solutions to deliver on this. And when we saw Sound Transit Board members calling for the cancellation of projects like West Seattle, we know we had seen this movie before, and we weren't going to have the same ending happen. So we launched the Build the Damn Trains campaign. And this campaign has 3 asks for the Sound Transit Board. The first ask is to not cancel light rail projects. The second ask is to keep projects moving. We know these projects only get more expensive the longer we wait. And the third was that we're all in this together as one region. And we need regional solutions, not just sub-area ones. And so we kicked off this campaign on November 13th, and we chose that date because it was the date of the Sound Transit Board retreat. We know the Sound Transit Board is going to be working on this issue for the next 5 to 6 months. And when they think about how they're going to move forward on this project, we want them to hear that people of this region love light rail. They want to see these projects get done, and they want the Sound Transit Board to put people like Brad to work and come up with solutions like the ones that we saw and figure out ways to deliver this, and deliver this in a creative way that doesn't mean cutting back projects. So we're going to continue to bird dog Sound Transit and this staff and make sure the board hears that people want these projects. They want creative solutions to delivering this and not just reverting to cutting back projects. So thank you all so much for being here. I know I'm standing in the way of you and your questions for Brad, but if you're interested in getting light rail done, please check out buildthedamntrains.com. Sign up for a newsletter where you can learn more about the campaign, how to get involved, and how to make sure we deliver on this vision. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Brad. Okay, folks, so I've had the chance to look at a number of the questions, and first, can we please give it up for Erin House from my team who's been walking through the aisles, to Misha, the executive director here at EMDA, Rachel from the West Seattle Chamber, who is walking the aisles too. We've collected dozens of your cards already, and I know folks probably heard some things for the first time tonight, so thanks again. Again, a huge amount of appreciation for all of you being here. I'm going to ask 3 questions, and then I know there's at least 2 people who pinged me and said, I want to ask a question. We will probably have time for one or two more because we have about 20 minutes left on our rented time here. But I want to tell you there were some themes. So if you had a question related to the Avalon Station, you heard some of the presentation today say, let us offer clarity, let us not bury the lead on Avalon. So the two questions, please, thank you very much for coming back to the stage, Brad and Jason. Some of the questions were around, can you offer additional clarity on the Avalon Station, if there's anything else that you'd like to offer there? And recognizing that some of the properties had had an early acquisition, some of those properties may be vacant. Can you talk a little bit about what the process may be going forward? If you don't know the answer to any of these questions, as you know, we're gonna share all these questions with you. And because you've signed up on that email list, we're gonna get these answers out to you as well. But is there anything else that you'd like to offer on the Avalon Station, the property around there, and any other details?
Sure. I think what I want to do is start with the Avalon Station and the elimination of Avalon. I'm going to have Jason speak for a moment about ridership and what happens when you move Avalon Station, because I think that's important to the conversation. And then I'll address some of the property.
And we're kind of like both standing outside of the stage, so if you guys want to come up here, you're welcome to. And if there's a specific slide you want us to go back to, of course, just go ahead and do that. But go ahead, please.
Thanks. So we heard a lot about the Avalon Station, and there are a lot of people that were really looking forward to a station there. It's a neighborhood that's growing, and people were looking forward to it. But we also heard a lot of concern about the impacts to getting to that station location and the relatively light ridership that we had forecast for that station. And so, thinking of all of those things and looking at how the people would access that station, overall in the project, we really don't see much of a ridership drop with eliminating the Avalon Station. The numbers for the modeling actually show most of the ridership would shift to either Alaska Junction or Delridge. And without that stop there, it actually speeds up the trip, and with a model really favors that type of thing. And again, it's all modeling, but we would be able to continue to serve the riders that would be accessing that station, but do acknowledge that it would be a little bit further for people that live in that community and would walk to Alaska Junction or Delridge. And I think that's it.
And then to address some of the property conversation, most of you in this room received a notification at some point in the past 2 to 5 years about your property. And so what I would say is this: it's incredibly important to us to reduce those impacts. Our mission is to bring light rail to West Seattle, and we intend to do that. We're fighting very hard to make that happen. You saw a lot of the opportunities that we showed you potentially reduce the property that we have to take. I would say change the property that we have to take would be another way of putting it. And so we don't want to, in addition to that, in addition to some of the changes, the board must address the affordability challenge, the affordability issue that Sound Transit is facing. And some of the options that they have before them, and some of the alternatives and scenarios they're going to choose later in Q2 of 26, Q3 of 26, they can choose to do different things with these projects. They can, projects can be deferred, although we don't want to do that or don't think we're going to do that. Projects can be deferred, projects can be phased. And so while the board takes the next 5 to 6 months to make those decisions, we are also trying to reduce property takes. So some of you may receive some communication on that. We're here to talk to you about that, here to help you understand what that means for you. And just ask for your communication as we move through this process.
Anything else on that topic?
I think you had one question about properties that have already been acquired near the Avalon Station. So there are 3 homes that we acquired. They were requests for early acquisition, not that anybody wanted to sell their home to us for this project, but these were people that were really in a tough circumstance given where the project was and where we were with the relocation timeline. And so we worked with those property owners to acquire their homes and help them relocate elsewhere. Should the project not need those homes, we would work with our real property team and look at what the opportunities for those homes would be in the future. But at this time, we would need to really understand what the project was before we made any decisions like that.
Okay, thank you, and thanks to all of you who wrote in about Avalon. I want to say I'm looking for Rachel from the West Seattle Chamber, because what I hear from businesses regularly is that they need just predictability. They just want to know what the future is going to look like. So I hear you saying folks can reach out to you and have those conversations, whether it's Delridge, Avalon or at the top of the hill on California, we want to make sure that people have a direct line there and they get their questions answered. I was pleased, I'm going to not quote you, but I'm going to say what I heard. I think within the presentation you heard that as they look at this North Delridge connection, if they're going to be able to burrow where the existing self-storage is, then there is the high possibility that the swimming pool and the West Seattle Health Club will not be impacted. So for folks who've been writing my office about that, just want to make sure you hear that that is in the works. And I heard you also say no guarantees. So that's the big asterisk there. But
Yes, please, give us grace to work through the process.
Grace is there and very much appreciated. You're going through that process. The other thing that we got a lot of questions about was buses. So folks have asked about both the H line and any rapid ride that can be accelerated, what's going to happen for additional bus line connectivity, and questions about the impact on SoDo, which is in our district, right, our overlapping districts. We have obviously a lot of buses that go along the SoDo corridor there. I know that that's a Metro-related issue, and I want to say thank you. You probably can't answer on behalf of Metro. Actually, as I said that, and Metro is a King County thing, I want to say thanks to our partners in Seattle. I thanked Councilmember Saka, but thanks to Mayor Harold and his team. Angela Brady is here on behalf of Mayor Harold, and give her a round of applause. That's appropriate. Yeah, I love that. And also a West Seattle resident, I understand, right? Yes. So both to the mayor's office, for the city of Seattle council members, for King County, and for Sound Transit, we know we need to work with Metro. But anything else you can illuminate there on bus connectivity?
I think I'll just reiterate that until the Ballard Link extension's open and the 3-line trains continue into the regional network, the buses from West Seattle will continue to serve the destinations downtown and beyond. And so it'll be a redundant service. They'll have an opportunity to connect at Delridge and DeSoto, or to continue all the way downtown. I did want to hit on the point about the busway closing, right? So this project will be constructed in what's called the E3 busway, or 5th Avenue South, I like to call it, because it's more logical. The buses from there will no longer be able to utilize that corridor, which connects up to the SoDo station and beyond. We've been working closely with Angie's team and our partners at King County Metro on kind of how that would change the transportation network in the SoDo area. We've looked at corridors to move those buses onto 4th Avenue, and safety and reliability improvements along that corridor to bring those buses to 4th Avenue. We're continuing to advance that work, and we actually will have more to say on that out in the community, speaking with some of those property owners and business owners in SoDo in the very near future.
Anything else on that?
Anything at 6th
6th Avenue was the question.
We're currently looking at 4th because that's the current transit corridor.
Okay, thank you. So I know there's 2 people along this line that wanted a question, and I'm going to go to you first. Okay, quickly, just because we don't want to take the rest of the time, but go ahead. I know one of your questions was about community engagement, so please go ahead.
Yes, so much has been brought up tonight, and we are really grateful for your information, but we have many, many questions. Will there be a genuine town hall for West Seattle? Not where we get 15 or 10 minutes to ask questions, but to have a real dialogue about our problems.
So, Marilyn, I know your name because we've spent so much time talking together. So I like to think that we are very accessible. Our community outreach lead, Charlie's here tonight, Cody, who you've met with, our real property team's here. We're always open to talk to community members.
Thank you, Jason.
And thank you for that. I don't know if you had something else. I'll just say, folks, as well, this is an opportunity for me to hear directly from you all. And as you know, neither Councilmember Saka or myself are on the Sound Transit Board, but we are very interested in getting your direct feedback. So my hope is that we can actually do this on a regular basis as we head into 2026. I would be so lucky to be able to be on the Sound Transit Board, and I would be so lucky to be able to have these conversations with you on a regular basis. So I think that there's a way for us to continue to partner, and just on behalf of our office, we very much appreciate the engagement. Huge shout out again to our team, Erin Howes, Camila Brown, who you met, and Chris Lampkin when you walked in. We'll continue to engage with you all. Okay, well, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jess. I'm a West Seattle resident, live near the Alaska Junction. And I just want to know, as transit supporters, what can we do to help this get built faster?
That's a great question. Thank you so much. I think an active voice, you know, we have the electeds that we respond to, the electeds that govern us, the electeds that sit on our board, you know, Councilmember Saka, Councilmember Mosqueda. It's important for them to hear your voice, to know that you support, to know what you support. And so to that end, thank you very much. I think you just continue to engage with your council offices, your elected officials, coming to the board meetings to show that support. That's very good. You know, it's also, you know, it makes us feel good about the work we're doing when people come and talk about the support. So thank you for that. We really appreciate everything.
I think part of the other part of that question, if I could, is CEO Constantine was talking about ways to look at reduced costs and more work being done in that realm. As you look at reduced costs and as there's more limited impact, will that help to bring online the transit sooner? Is the map that you showed a possibility to bring it online sooner, since there would potentially be less impact?
So we are looking, yes, when you have to build less, you can build faster. One of the things that we're looking at right now is optimizing the schedule. We're going through a process. In addition to the cost, you have to align the schedule up to it. So we're looking at that. It's a little bit too early to tell because we're still feeling some of these things out to make sure we can work on them. But you know, more to come on that.
Okay, great. And we have a question up here. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Erin Rubin. I'm the owner of Mode Music Studios and founder of Mode Music and Performing Arts. Oh, thank you. Both are impacted by the North Delridge station, and we're looking forward to finding a new space, but hoping that maybe you can give us a little bit of insight as you move into West Seattle, since we'll be one of the first to be impacted, and then more businesses that are not necessarily having buildings acquired because we are renters of our spaces, what you're doing and partnering with the city to make sure that we will have the we'll have the funding that we need in order to move as we wait for the relocation funds to come in.
Good to see you, Aaron. You're right, there are a lot of businesses that are not owners of their property. And we have two really different programs for relocation and acquisition. We have the acquisition, which is essentially buying a building or a house, and then we have the relocation of those who use that. So if it's somebody renting a home or an apartment, or somebody who's leasing a space for a business, we have relocation agents that work directly with those people. We've been really successful throughout the entire region, from Federal Way to Linwood to Redmond, to relocate businesses. It's an unfortunate thing that happens with this work, but we've, I think, done a really good job of working with those in the communities and trying to find them new places in their community.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to say that these slides here are a lot of the detail that you saw in the PowerPoint, and I know that you all are committed to getting back to us those questions, and any additional information you can send out, I think is going to be very appreciated. Councilmember Saka and I were just, come on up here. Councilmember Saka and I were just chatting about how helpful this has been. Neither of us are on the Sound Transit Board, as we said, but we are very interested in this feedback, and I think, fingers crossed, 2026 is the year for us to have some West Seattle representation again. So fingers crossed we can continue these conversations. Please give it up for all of our presenters tonight, from the Mayor's Office, City Council, from Sound Transit, from TCC, and especially thanks to Executive Braddock and CEO Constantine. Thank you, Jason, and thank you very much, Brad, for sharing this level of detail with us all. More to come, quarter one next year.